let's talk about Joe Biden. Now, I don't know about you, but the words, Joe Biden's heading to the Middle East, are about as scary as hearing that your bushwalking tour guide is named Ivan Milat, or learning that Roman Polanski is coming over to babysit. I mean, what could go wrong, right? Well, Joe Biden is there in the Middle East, and there have been the usual fumbles, like when he appeared to need help just to stay on the red carpet getting off the plane in Israel, and then seemed to fade out after he was given an award at a ceremony there. Where is he going? Oh, which chair do I sit in? I don't know. Listen, Jack! Or more disturbingly, when he got tongue-tied while talking about the Holocaust.
I will once more return to the hollow ground of Yad Vashem to honor 6 million Jewish lives were stolen in the genocide, and continue, which we must do every day, continue to bear witness. To keep alive the truth and honor of the Holocaust, horror of the Holocaust.
Honor, horror, what's the difference? Now, of course, that's just par for the course for Sleepy Joe, and you almost kind of feel bad for him. But then there is the serious business of what else he or his handlers are trying to achieve. Just little items like, bringing down America's historically high gas prices, restoring confidence in American leadership, and just the little matter of stopping Iran from setting off a nuclear conflagration in the region. All in a day's work for a guy whose first reaction on seeing all the women in Saudi Arabia wearing headscarves was probably something along the lines of, "Oh man, come on, how am I supposed to sniff the hair now? No fair, Jack!" But on a serious note, you've got to wonder whether any of this is even possible. Because according to even the Biden-friendly Politico.com, as far as oil prices are concerned, Joey of Arabia doesn't stand an ice cube's chance in the desert of getting the sheiks to do anything about paying at the pump. This was something that French President Emmanuel Macron warned the president about at the recent NATO summit.
According to us, the Saudis can increase a little bit, but 150 or a little bit more, and they don't have huge capacities.
Joe looked like he was taking every word of that in and digesting it and processing it, I'm sure. But there would be an easier solution to the problem than emitting all that CO2 jetting around the Mideast, of course. Take the handcuffs off domestic oil producers. As Forbes magazine noted recently, quote, in June, Joe Biden sent a letter to oil refiners accusing them of engaging in price gouging and demanding that they find ways to refine and produce more gasoline. That's petrol to you and me. But have a look at Joe Biden's latest opinion figures here. I don't know if we've got them on the screen, but his latest polls suggest that most Democrats don't want Joe Biden to run in 2024. In fact, I think his approval rating is now, and this is according to the New York Times, down to something like 30%. So the question is, what's higher, Joe Biden's approval or the inflation rate of a sack of groceries in the United States?
I thought you were going to say what's higher, Joe Biden's popularity or his son.
No. What's higher, Joe?
I thought that's
Hunter.
where you were going. Yes.
But when Joe Biden said repeat the line, Hunter thought that meant something else. But let's have a little look. Do we have Joe Biden reacting to a reporter who's asking about this? Have a look. He's not happy.
Mr. President, what's your message to Democrats who don't want you to run again?
They want me to run.
2/3 say they don't.
Read the polls. Read the polls, Jack. You guys are all the same. That poll showed that 92% of Democrats, if I ran, would vote for me.
Wow, boy, he'd be a lot of fun to sit on the Greyhound bus. Yeah, read the polls, Jack.
Read the polls,
Rita.
Jack.
Read the polls, Rita. Let's have a look at Joe Biden landing in Israel here. You're going to have a look on your screen here. He came down the stairs, and I don't know if we've got video of it, but he actually couldn't basically walk and find the red carpet. Let's also have a listen to Kamala Harris, the vice president, talking about transport.
Together, we are expanding access to transportation. Seems like maybe it's a small issue, it's a big issue. You need to go and need to be able to get where you need to go to do the work and get home.
Among Biden's fleetingly lucid remarks, he declared to the Jewish people that, quote, "You don't need to be a Jew to be a Zionist." Well, absolutely right. But this may come as a shock to some Democrats who love to refer to Israel as an apartheid state. For more on Biden's trip, including his visit to Saudi Arabia, we're joined by physician and senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. You know her well, Qanta Ahmed. Dr. Ahmed, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Now,
great to be with you, James.
Now, I want to get right into it. I want your reaction to Joe Biden's trip to Saudi Arabia. We've spoken a bit about it earlier on the show. He went from calling it a pariah state during his election campaign to now having a bit of a fist bump with old Mohammed bin Salman. Is this a needed reset or is this dangerous territory? What's your perspective?
I think this is the unequivocal display of a deeply weakened United States being led by a very enfeebled president. Domestically, President Biden's popularity amongst all Americans is the lowest of any president since President Truman in the immediate aftermath of World War II. We have, in contrast, in Saudi Arabia, one of the youngest crown princes in the history of Saudi Arabia, who has over 90% popularity with age 18 to 24-year-olds in the kingdom, and 60% of the kingdom is under 30 years old. So we're looking at a truly tragic figure of the United States trying to find its place in the Middle East. The fact that the President of the United States had to announce in that commercial meeting in Jeddah with members of the Saudi royal family that the United States is not leaving the region to the machinations of China and Russia tells you how much power the United States has lost in the region over the last 2 decades.
We often discuss on this program the way anti-Semitism is not called out strongly enough in Australia. Thankfully, though, there has been some positive news, at least in South Australia, with the upper house adopting the international definition of anti-Semitism. Of course, not everybody could get on board with the vote. Unsurprisingly, the Greens and SA Best voted against the motion. The definition, now this is important, as laid out by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, rightfully highlights that criticism of Israel and the Jewish people's right to self-determination is intrinsically linked to anti-Semitism, a fact that many on the left struggle with or, in fact, choose to ignore. Joining Outsiders now, it is my great pleasure to welcome South Australia One Nation MP who brought this motion to the upper house in South Australia, Sarah Game. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us here today. Tell us about the motion, how it got through, and who your opponents were in doing what would seem, I think, to many viewers here, a pretty common sense measure.
Exactly. It's been a very interesting experience. I mean, I'll just point out that we only have a very small Jewish community in South Australia, so about 500 to 1,000 people that identify as Jewish here. So it was first brought to me by Dr. David Adler, head of the Australian Jewish Association, and it just seemed like a really straightforward, simple thing to do, the right thing to do. It's been passed in 2 other states and endorsed federally. So it's been a very interesting experience to see just how difficult it was to get it passed here. And although it did pass, it passed with a bit of a bad taste.
You've written this great piece in Newsweek, and one of the things that you talk about here is that there is a malaise in the West currently, and you say that ideological goals of the elites are being pursued at the expense of the lower middle class and working classes, and you see truckers in Canada rebelling against this, farmers in the Netherlands, you see people rebelling against this in the United States in different ways. You see what's happening in Germany, where they've shut off the nuclear plants for whatever reason and now are going to go into a very cold winter in just a few months. They're gratifying the elites, you write, while immiserating the working class. Tell us what is happening here. Tell us why the elites are doing this, but also what is the pushback that's happening?
I mean, I think this is a larger trend. You already mentioned, Brexit and the election of Donald Trump, and those were already symptoms of that pushback. But the situation we find ourselves in, I would say it consists of 4 different groups, right? One group is the activists. I mean, those are the people who really believe that the end of the world is around the corner, and they're overrepresented in media, in academia, and in the cultural sphere. Then you have the governments and politicians, and what they do is they like to virtue signal to those people because they believe, right? Most of them are on Twitter. They're very active on Twitter. They believe that they represent a huge chunk of the population. And then you have companies who want to make a profit off of it, right? For example, I don't believe that Unilever cares particularly about the environment, but it's something they have to say because they wanted to pander to a specific clientele. So you have a kind of a Bermuda Triangle of ideology that consists of those 3 groups. And the quote unquote, when I mean, the working class or the middle class, you could also call them the people who just pay their taxes and want to live their lives. Like people who don't spend a lot of time on social media. They're trapped in this because it's more and more encroaching on their daily lives. I mean, you just mentioned it, right? In Germany, to leave nuclear energy behind was a purely political, ideological position. And the people were told, oh, don't worry, we're going to replace it with wind, we're going to replace it with solar. Now it turns out that's not going to work, and they will get poorer. And I think this is part of this. They realize now that they accepted the eccentric ideas of their elites to the extent that they did not believe that it will have a negative effect on their life. But now they see this negative effect. And this is what I tried to put together in my piece, right?
I just want to go back to Ivana Trump for 1 minute, because one of the things that is really been kind of interesting is to go back and to remember the times when Ivana and Donald were married, and then they had a very big divorce, but then they remained friends. And actually, Ivana did wind up, providing informal advice to Donald Trump during the 2016 campaign. But they also famously did a Pizza Hut ad together. And I think this is just a kind of a lovely way to remember her. So have a look at this, and then we're going to come back with Daisy telling us all about masked madness in Victoria. But have a look at this great Pizza Hut ad starring Donald Trump and his then ex-wife, Ivana Trump.
Do you really think this is the right thing for us to be doing, Ivana?
What will people think?
Let them talk. Ivana. It's wrong, isn't it?
But it feels so right.
Then it's a deal?
Yes, we eat our pizza the wrong way.
Crust first. You're only entitled to half.
Large, just $9.99.